The wine glasses clinked as Elizabeth Montgomery raised her glass in a toast, her impeccably manicured hands steady despite it being her third glass of Bordeaux. To family success, she declared, her gaze locking onto me with thinly veiled disdain. As the primary force behind much of the family's prosperity, I sat silently at the enormous dining table, watching my mother-in-law put on a performance for her usual Sunday evening audience. My husband, James, shifted uneasily beside me but said nothing. Confronting his mother had never been his strong suit. "Such a pity about your little boutique, Christine," Elizabeth went on, her words dripping with insincere sympathy. "I warned James that retail was such an unpredictable business. Not everyone is meant for the corporate world. My name is Christine Chen, and at 34, I found myself watching my mother-in-law relish what she believed to be my financial downfall. After 2 years of her calculated interference, she was convinced she had finally succeeded in proving that I wasn't worthy of her beloved son or the prestigious Montgomery name. These things happen," I replied smoothly, taking a small sip of wine. "Business can be unpredictable." Elizabeth's smile widened, pleased with my apparent defeat. "Of course, dear. Not everyone can establish something enduring like Montgomery Cosmetics. 30 years of triumph doesn't come without effort." I thought about the documents waiting in my home office, signed and prepped for tomorrow morning's board meeting. While Elizabeth had been busy dismantling my small chain of boutiques, I had been orchestrating the largest corporate takeover in Montgomery Cosmetics history. "Mom," James attempted weakly, "maybe we should change the subject." "Why?" Elizabeth interrupted smoothly. "We must discuss your future, James. Now that Christine's financial position has shifted, it might be time to explore other possibilities." I knew precisely what she meant by other possibilities. Victoria Pierce, the daughter of Elizabeth's closest friend, had returned to town following her divorce. For months, Elizabeth had been subtly, though not subtly enough, nudging her toward James. My phone vibrated softly with a message from Marcus, my attorney. "Everything is confirmed for tomorrow. The board votes are locked in. She won't see it coming." Excusing myself, I made my way to the bathroom, needing a moment to compose myself. Inside the grand marble-adorned bathroom of the Montgomery estate, I stared at my reflection and thought back to how all of this had begun 3 years ago. At the time, I had been a rising star in the retail industry. My boutique chain, Style Haven, was expanding at an impressive rate, featured in prominent fashion magazines, and attracting interest from high-end brands. Then, I made what Elizabeth deemed my gravest mistake, marrying her son, James. We had met at a charity gala. He was kind, gentle, and utterly dominated by his mother. But I loved him and naively believed that love would be enough to overcome Elizabeth's disapproval of my new money background and Chinese-American heritage. The sabotage began subtly. Elizabeth would casually mention to her elite social circle that my boutiques had quality issues. Critical suppliers abruptly pulled contracts, landlords unexpectedly hiked rents or refused to renew leases. Each setback seemed coincidental, but I knew better. What Elizabeth failed to realize was that I had been meticulously documenting everything, every casual phone call where she advised suppliers to sever ties, every conversation in which she pressured property owners, every veiled threat she issued to anyone associated with Style Haven. More importantly, she never thought to scrutinize the series of investment firms discreetly acquiring shares of Montgomery Cosmetics over the past year. Why would she? The firms all appeared independent, reputable, with no apparent connection to me. My phone vibrated again with another message from Marcus. "Final count confirmed. Through the holding companies, you now control 62%. Board meeting set for 9 a.m. I returned to the dining room just as Elizabeth launched into another tale of her business acumen. "It's all about connections, really," she was saying. "The right people, the right pedigree. You understand, Christine." "Perfectly," I responded, thinking about the connections I had made while compiling my case against her, the suppliers who provided evidence of her interference, the landlords who recorded her threats, the executives within her company who had grown tired of her outdated management and prejudiced practices. Beneath the table, James gave my hand a quick squeeze, a quiet gesture of support he only dared when his mother wasn't watching. He had no idea what was about to unfold. I had deliberately kept him in the dark, to protect him and to ensure his reaction tomorrow would be completely genuine. "More wine, Christine?" Elizabeth offered, her smile razor-sharp. "Drown your sorrows." "No, thank you," I said, setting my glass down. "I have an early meeting in the morning." She couldn't resist the jab. "Oh, still attempting to salvage your little boutiques?" "Sometimes, it's best to accept defeat with dignity." I thought of the countless nights spent privately grieving her sabotage, the painstaking effort it took to rebuild after each setback, the patience required to turn her own manipulations against her. "Actually," I said calmly, "it's a corporate consulting meeting. I've been looking into new ventures." Elizabeth's smile turned patronizing. "How lovely. Perhaps something more fitting for your abilities. Retail sales, maybe." James started to protest, but I gave his hand a gentle squeeze, signaling him to hold back. Let her savor this moment. Let her think she had one. Tomorrow, the truth would be revealed soon enough. As dinner wound down, Elizabeth pulled James aside for a private word, deliberately ensuring her voice was just loud enough for me to overhear. "Victoria is looking quite radiant since her return," she mused. "You two were so close back in college. First choices aren't always the best choices, darling." Gathering my things, I acted as though I hadn't heard. Elizabeth Montgomery had dedicated 3 years to pushing me out of her family and crushing my business. She thought she had triumphed. In less than 12 hours, she would realize just how mistaken she was. "Christine," she called as we were leaving, "don't be a stranger. Just because things didn't work out with your business doesn't mean you're not still family, in a way." I turned back, unable to resist leaving her with a subtle clue. "Thank you, Elizabeth. You've taught me so much about business, about acquiring things people don't wish to part with, about patience. Tomorrow should be quite revealing." Her smile faltered slightly, but I was already walking away, James trailing behind me. In the car, he apologized yet again for his mother's behavior. "I don't know why she acts this way. I should have said something." "It's okay," I reassured him. "Everything is going to be different very soon." "What do you mean?" I patted his hand. "Just be prepared for tomorrow's announcement, and remember that I love you." That night, I went over everything one last time, the meticulously gathered evidence of Elizabeth's sabotage, ready for release if necessary, the legal documents proving my majority stake in Montgomery Cosmetics, the board votes already secured. My phone lit up with a final message from Marcus. "All systems go. Elizabeth won't know what hit her." I smiled to myself, recalling Elizabeth's smug toast to family success. By tomorrow, I would be the one defining what success meant for the Montgomery family. The Montgomery Cosmetics boardroom carried a different energy at 8:45 a.m. as I settled into the head seat, Elizabeth's usual place. She wasn't aware of that change yet. Through the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched her arrive in the parking lot, striding toward the building with her customary air of entitlement. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Marcus asked quietly, arranging the documents we would need once the meeting commenced. "There's no turning back." I nodded, reflecting on the countless nights leading up to this moment. She made this choice, Marcus. She just never expected anyone to push back. Elizabeth swept into the room precisely at 9 a.m., faltering slightly when she saw me in her seat. "Christine, what are you doing here?" Her eyes narrowed as she took in the sight of me. "That's my chair," she snapped. "Not anymore," I said evenly as the other board members began filing in. "Please take any other seat. We have important matters to address." "This is ridiculous," she snapped again, refusing to move. I am the CEO of this company. I don't know what kind of game you're playing. Actually, Marcus interjected smoothly, as of this morning, Miss Chen is now the majority shareholder of Montgomery Cosmetics, controlling 62% of voting shares through various investment channels. This emergency board meeting has been called to discuss the transition in leadership. The color drained from Elizabeth's face. That's impossible. I would have known if someone was acquiring shares. Would you? I asked, flipping open the folder before me. Just like you knew who was really behind Pacific Ridge Investment Group or Summit Blay Holdings. You were so focused on destroying my business that you failed to notice who was quietly acquiring control of yours. The board members watched with barely concealed interest. Many of them had their own grievances with Elizabeth's authoritarian leadership and discriminatory policies. This is absurd, Elizabeth spluttered. The boardroom door swung open, and James entered. I had called him early that morning, finally revealing everything. He looked pale but resolute. "Hello, Mother," he said quietly, taking a seat beside me. Elizabeth's expression twisted in rage and betrayal. "You knew about this?" "I only just found out," James responded. "And after learning everything, all the ways you tried to ruin Christine's business, all the manipulation, I fully support her taking control." "The votes are already secured," Marcus added, distributing documents to the board. "The board has agreed that a leadership change is necessary for the company's continued success and ethical operation." I watched Elizabeth's carefully maintained composure fracture as the reality of the situation sank in. "You can't do this to me," she whispered. "This company is my life. Just like my business was mine," I said quietly, "before you dismantled it, piece by piece. I have evidence of everything, Elizabeth, every threat, every tampered contract, every sabotage attempt." I projected the evidence onto the boardroom screen: emails, recorded conversations, sworn testimonies from suppliers and property owners. 3 years' worth of meticulously documented proof of her campaign against me. "You could have just accepted me," I said as she sank into a chair, watching her empire crumble. "You could have given me a fair chance. Instead, you decided I wasn't worthy of your son or your social circle, so you set out to destroy me." The board members scrutinized the evidence with growing unease. Elizabeth's actions weren't just personal, they were unethical and, potentially, illegal. "What do you want?" she finally asked, her voice hollow. "I want what I've earned," I replied. "Control of this company, the opportunity to modernize it, expand it, and elevate it beyond what it ever was under your leadership. And I want you to understand exactly how it feels to have everything stripped away by someone you underestimated." Marcus began distributing the severance agreements we had prepared. "You can leave with dignity," I told Elizabeth. "Keep your social standing, your country club memberships, your place in high society, or you can fight, and I'll make sure every piece of evidence I have goes public. It's your choice." Her hands trembled as she read through the documents. "You really thought of everything, didn't you?" "I learned from the best," I said. "You taught me patience and strategy in business. Sometimes, you have to let your opponent believe they're winning before you make your final move." The next hour blurred with legal jargon and signatures. Elizabeth signed every document set before her, her flawless makeup unable to mask her devastation. By 10:30, she was no longer CEO of Montgomery Cosmetics. As she stood to leave, she turned to James one final time. "She planned this from the beginning," she said bitterly. "She married you just to get to me." James shook his head. "No, Mother. I married her because I love her. You turned it into a war, and you lost." Once Elizabeth was gone, the board swiftly approved our transition strategy. By noon, I was officially the CEO of Montgomery Cosmetics, with a directive to modernize and expand the company. That evening, James and I sat together in our home office, absorbing everything that had transpired. "I wish you had told me sooner," he said quietly. "I had to protect you," I explained. And I needed your reaction to be genuine. Your mother had to believe you knew nothing. He nodded slowly. What happens next? Now, we rebuild, I said. The company and our family, but on new terms. In the following months, Montgomery Cosmetics underwent a transformation. We launched innovative product lines, modernized our marketing approach, and expanded into international markets. The stock price soared. Elizabeth withdrew to her country estate, making only occasional appearances at carefully chosen social gatherings. The whispers followed her, how her Chinese-American daughter-in-law had outmaneuvered her, seized her company, and proved herself more than worthy of the Montgomery name. A year later, I sat in what had once been Elizabeth's office, reviewing quarterly reports. The company was thriving, our market share steadily growing. The phone rang, Elizabeth's number. I understand now, she said without preamble. What I did to you, what it feels like. That was the point, I responded. The company, it's doing better than ever. A long pause. Perhaps I was wrong about you. About everything. I thought of all the pain she had inflicted, the nights I had cried over her sabotage, the relentless effort it had taken to turn the tables. Yes, I said simply. You were. Another pause. James mentioned you're expecting a girl, due in March. I'd like to be part of her life, if you'll allow it. I glanced at the family photo on my desk, James and me at last year's company gala, both smiling genuinely for the first time in years. We can try, I said carefully. But things will be different. No manipulation, no games, no control. I understand, she said quietly. You've certainly proved you're stronger than I thought. After we hung up, I walked to the window, gazing over the city skyline. Elizabeth had spent years trying to prove I wasn't good enough for her family or her company. In defeating her, I proved something far greater. I wasn't just good enough, I was better.